Welcome, everyone, to the Money Counts webinar series presented by the Sokolov-Miller Family Financial and Life Skills Center. We are here to help you feel more comfortable, confident, and capable of making smart money decisions that support your financial future. I'm Melanie Schramm, an education program specialist at the center, and I'm hosting our bi-weekly webinars throughout the semester. We meet every other Tuesday to talk about important money topics and give you practical tools you can actually use in real life. Thank you for joining us today for webinar number 7 in our series on after graduation. Today, we have Clarissa Tice joining us as a guest speaker. Clarissa is a financial literacy ambassador here at the center, who she herself is currently preparing to graduate. She'll talk about some of the steps that she's already taken to feel successful while preparing for life after graduation. Clarissa, would you mind saying hello and introducing yourself?
Absolutely. Good afternoon, everybody. Like Melanie said, my name's Clarissa. I'm a senior at Penn State University Park, studying political science, criminology, and classic and ancient Mediterranean studies. And in the fall, I'll be starting at law school. I've been working for the center for 4 years, so I'm super excited to be able to talk a little bit about what my planning the past few months has looked like as I get ready to live after graduation.
Thank you so much, Clarissa. I'm so happy to have you here with me today. I'm so glad that you all are here taking the time out of your busy schedules to focus on what happens for you after the big day. We're just about a month out from graduation and the financial fog might be sitting in. My goal today is that we can clear that fog, if even just a little bit. I'm not here to lecture on math and money. Rather, we'll look at more of a roadmap for when you first leave and you're no longer a Penn State student. Rather, you become an official Penn State alum. We will be back again in 2 weeks for our last Money Counts webinar series of the semester to wrap everything up. The webinar will take place on April 28th, and we will be discussing environmental stewardship. We will have on with us a guest from Penn State Sustainability to talk about how Penn State lives in the space of sustainability, and we'll also discuss how you, as a conscious consumer, can benefit our environment and protect your wallet while doing so. I'm so happy that you are all here. It looks like we have a lot of first timers with us. Super excited for that and hope that you can find some information helpful. And for those of you that have been here before, welcome back. That I will be sharing out just a little bit quickly about who we are and what we do at the center, because especially knowing that a lot of you, this is your first time here. The Sokolov-Miller Family Financial and Life Skills Center is your go-to resource for personal finance support here at Penn State. Beyond the series that we're on today, we have so many services that are free, and they're designed to help you feel more informed to make better decisions to strengthen your overall financial well-being. Our website is a really great place to start. So you'll see that come through from Haley in the chat. One of our most popular services that we have here is one-on-one coaching appointments. Students and alumni can meet with us again for free about any financial topic. We also present for classes, campus organization groups on topics such as student loans and credit cards and debt management. We have just around 30 topics that we present on. And we also do offer public service loan forgiveness consultation sessions for any faculty and staff. So if you find yourself wanting to learn more and figure out about your situation, we do have appointments available for that. Our center also has self-paced modules online through campus. It's free. You can log in you don't have to log in, excuse me, and just to study up and practice some of your financial information. And we also have a really nice financial book collection across the Penn State campuses. If you're here at University Park, you will find our financial wellness bookshelf in our office in the Grange building. You can also log on to the libraries online and find the ebook links. Haley dropped those into the chat so you can see those if you're interested in any ebooks. We also partner with PNC, and they offer additional coaching and resources for PSU employees. Some exciting news. I know I mentioned it last time we were on for our webinar, but April is Financial Literacy Month, and PNC is having a webinar specific to budgeting on April 23rd. It's a Thursday at 3 p.m. for any employees. So mark your calendars and check out that info about the PNC webinar if that seems like something that would be helpful for you. Before we talk about really some of the heavy hitters, like investing and credit, I want to talk about just the simple housekeeping checklist items of graduation that you can start looking at now if you haven't already done so. If you've already worked through these, that's awesome. Good job. Way to go. If you're not through most of these or all of these, that's okay. That's why we're here to talk about them. It's easy to get focused on the cap and the gown, and some of these smaller logistical pieces just find themselves falling through the cracks. But we can look at these 4 checklist items kind of as your final sprint checklist, just to make sure that you're keeping your transition to life after graduation seamless. First things first, just going back and checking your graduation requirements. Sounds super simple, but I encourage you to do it one last time. You've worked so hard for years, and it won't hurt to just go back and make sure that there aren't any surprises in the 11th hour that could delay your diploma. Next, you'll want to update your forwarding address. Your diploma will be mailed to you, and you just want to make sure that it finds you where you're at. It doesn't get lost. A big one, getting any recommendation letters while you can now. Your professors, your supervisors, people here know who you are. They know your face, your work ethic, your contributions. You've worked hard to foster relationships with them. If you haven't asked for your recommendation letters yet, now's the time while you're still fresh in their mind, while your accomplishments, your contributions, your personality are still fresh. It will be so much easier for your professors and others to write a glowing, detailed letter today than it will be in 6 months when you're just a name in an email box. And finally, update information with lenders. So for those of you specifically with student loans, your lenders will start reaching out to you in about 6 months after graduation when your grace period starts to wrap up. By updating your contact information now, you're putting yourself in the driver's seat so that you know you're getting those critical notices directly instead of having to play catch up later down the road. We will talk about loans more in detail later, but this is just the first simple step to check off of your to-do list. The QR code on the slide, if you haven't had a chance to check it out and want to scan that, it'll take you to a resource page that helps you navigate your Penn State account, just to make sure that you're tying up the ends before everything closes out. So simple piece of advice, just take 5 minutes today to at least knock one of these items off of your list, and your future self will definitely thank you. Now that we have an idea of these checklist items of tying up some of those loose ends, we'll move into the main portion of the content for today, and we'll split it up into 5 steps. While I talk through this slide, I really want to hear what you all are looking forward to upon graduation. So I want to hear what your next chapter looks like. If you could drop in the Q&A box one thing that you're doing after graduation. For example, moving, new job, gap year, any of those things, or beyond that, just send information over. I'm excited to know where you all are headed. And while you're doing that, just to give you a preview of the topics that we'll cover today, we will look at basic budgeting and how your post-graduation budget can be different from the one that you have pre-graduation as of right now. We will explore getting comfortable with negotiating your salary, the power of saving and investing, and as well as student loans. I know that some people might be securing jobs, some people might be going to grad school. So we will talk about what loans can look like as furthering your education. And then we'll wrap everything up with looking at your financial GPA, aka your credit score, and also just generally talking about debt and how to manage it. I see someone saying, hopefully, a new job, have a handful of people attending grad school, someone taking a gap year / med school, going back home to Florida, someone is at one of the Commonwealth campuses currently and transferring up to UP in August. Awesome. It sounds like there's a wide variety of what you all are doing. So very nice. Thank you for interacting and sending over that information. That's helpful. Just for me to know what some of you are doing, we can really be sure to talk about those things. All righty. First steps first. Refresh your budget. Always seems like things really just come back to the budget. So we're going to dig in. A budget doesn't have to be restrictive. So that's one of the most important things, just knowing a budget does not have to be restrictive. Rather, it's a playbook or a game plan for your money. You can use your budget to tell your money where to go rather than wondering where it went after you spent it. And a budget can bring balance to your life. And that balance that it brings to you helps you for your both present or current needs and future needs, as well as your present and future wants. So we'll talk about the needs and the wants. We all want to spend money on entertainment, eating out, traveling, all of those fun things. And our budgets absolutely can allow that while we're also being sure to pay all of the bills, the car payments, the rent, student loans, electricity bills, phone bills, right? All of those. And then we also add in that part of the budget where we're sure to plan ahead for retirement. It might be another 40 or 50 years for some of you to retire. And the best part about that is that by starting now, time is on your side. 40 or 50 years and is an amazing amount of time to build up retirement savings. You do currently have a budget in place. Could you just send me a thumbs up? And something that's actually physical or digital rather than a running list in your mind. Because yes, a running list can be helpful, but when I refer to a budget more specifically, something that's tangible, either physical or digital. I did see a couple of thumbs up. Okay. So we're in a good place now. If you're sitting here thinking, uh-oh, I don't have a budget, it's okay. We will talk a little about it. And we'd be glad to sit down with you at any point in time to help you look at a budget and kind of lay that out on the table. You're welcome to schedule with us through Starfish, or you can reach us at finlit@psu.edu. When looking at a budget, it's really helpful to zoom out and look at the bigger picture, knowing what is the purpose of your budget. Maybe that purpose, excuse me, you're working to pay off your loans. Maybe you are working to save up for a vacation or your retirement, maybe your emergency fund. Having that goal for your budget will keep you motivated. So if you could send over in the Q&A, what is something that is a motivating goal for you within your budget that whether it be in the next 6 months, the next year, 5 or 10 years, any sort of financial goal that can help guide your budget. The great thing about budgeting is that you can really customize it and personalize it to fit your wants and your needs. If you want to meet a friend for coffee every weekend, you can absolutely set that as a goal and absolutely work it into your budget. An important piece to note again Budgets do not have to be restrictive. Okay, some goals. Someone mentioned an emergency fund. Yes, it's recommended 3 to 6 months of your expenses to make sure to cover your emergency fund. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. Someone is looking to save as much as possible. Awesome. And then eventually paying off student loans. Very good. Some other options, saving up for a security deposit for an apartment or maybe a down payment for a car. Those are also some. Oh, and moving out of your parents' house. That was mine. That was my goal when I was getting ready to graduate, is just to be sure to save up so that I was financially independent. Second step, finding a tool that works for you. Haley is going to drop into the chat a tool that we created here at the center that is pretty basic. You plug everything in for your budget and it calculates for you. It's a nice spreadsheet that if you want to play around with that and access that budgeting tool, it's a really good place to work in. There are also so many other tools out there beyond what we have at the center that you can use. Some examples, you need a budget, which Penn State students, you get a free year, okay, with your Penn State email. So if you are getting ready to graduate, this could be an awesome opportunity for you to plug in your Penn State email and get a year for free while you're starting out in your post-graduation life. And there's Every Dollar and Rocket Money. There's so many others. Personally, I've tried a lot. Some of them just paper and pencil, others many apps. I've found myself to settle on a simple Google spreadsheet, and whatever the best tool is for you is the one that you'll actually use. In your version of budget, you'll be able to identify any and all income and any and all expenses. You can use that tool to track all of this. You'll start out with your main job, whether your salary or your hourly, and then add in any side gigs you might have, or anything else in terms of money coming in. So when I was born, my parents' colleagues would gift bonds. So I just cashed my bonds, they matured. So I had $250 that I received as an income. And at first I thought, oh, this is just like play money. No, my budget has to be honest and accurate. So I put it in as my income, that extra $250. So any sort of money, you'll list it out. And then even your expenses, right? You might have that 99-cent Apple storage bill that I know I do every single month it comes around. If it leaves your account as an expense, it is getting put down on that list. Again, being honest and accurate. Once all your income is listed out, your expenses are listed out, then you'll subtract. Okay, there will be 3 options when you subtract your expenses away from that income. And that's when you then figure out how to adjust your spending. When you subtract, one option that you could find yourself in is that you just break even, right? So expenses minus income, and you get to a $0 amount. Another option being you have a positive number, meaning you make more than what you spend, which is a great place to be. And the third option is that you spend more than May. You would be in the red. You would have a negative number. And this absolutely happens, right? It's likely. I know I've had months where this is the case. It just really could be that you're spending more than you're making without even realizing it. That's always been my case. And with your budget, you'll be able to go back, take note of it, adjust, make some changes, so that you're not getting yourself into debt. Because if you find yourself consistently spending more than what you make, then you will be consistently finding yourself in debt, but possibly feeling like there's no way out. So the best way the best thing that you can do is just simply prevent it. And again, ideally, you'll at least balance out at zero, or even better, have a little bit of money left over each month. That leftover money, it loops back to your financial goal. Any leftover money you have can be put towards that financial goal or goals that you set at the beginning while looking at your budget. Keep in mind that your budget is a working document and it changes with you. When you make more money, when you lose a job, any sort of big life changes, your budget will also change. Your loans get paid off, or you take on a new loan, your budget will change. So it's a process that you are just needing to stick on top of and fine tune throughout your life. I already talked a little bit about wants and needs, and we'll look a little more into them within the budget. Being able to separate by wants and needs allows you to see where you are spending and have that clear view so that you can make adjustments as needed. Expenses can really vary from person to person, and we all might be classifying our wants and needs differently. Some of you might be saying, yep, I had to DoorDash my dinner last night, and that was a need. Whereas others of you might consider it a want. Okay. It's very personal there for what you're deciding is a need or a want. If you are overspending, there's two options. The first one being you find somewhere within your budget to cut expenses. For me, it's usually my food across groceries as well as eating out, because that's a variable income and it fluctuates the most, but that's usually where I find myself cutting expenses, and gas just by traveling less. And then the second option of being able to adjust with overspending would be to find more income. Whether it be that you pick up overtime, you find a side gig, another part-time job, full-time job, what have you. Whenever you sit down and sift through your expenses to figure out if you are going to cut expenses, being able to separate your wants and needs can really help you determine which are the most important to you, which of those expenses, and then being able to rearrange them so that you can work towards finding that sense of security within your budget as well as freedom of choice. One more piece here with the budget, okay? When we are looking at our budgets, we're looking here on this slide about income. This might already make sense to you, but I just want to be sure to point out that the amount that you bring home is actually less than the total amount that you are getting paid. The key difference is the gross income and the net income. You'll find Haley's going to send over a calculator that can help you to figure out an estimate of your net income. So let's say you agree with your future employer that your salary will be $50,000. Okay. And you plug it into this calculator, that it will break down for you that 4,200, that's about what you get per month. If you budget, however, using that number, that's the gross monthly income, you'll find yourself in the red. We can remember what gross means because of the little saying, gross is the most. So this is the most amount prior to deductions. And then you have your net salary or your net income. And we can remember this with the saying, net is what you get. You have to be sure with your paychecks that you're recognizing, oh yes, taxes will be taken out, deductions will be taken out of your paycheck. The take home pay is the amount that you'll want to build your budget around, to be sure that you're not finding yourself in the red. So you can see there in the green and the yellow piece of the graph that those are your taxes and deductions, and they can be a considerable portion of your income. most people would think, oh, maybe like 10% or 50%, but a safe rule of thumb is about 25% or even up to 35%. I know when I go in and play with the salary paycheck calculator and look at my um, paychecks and I see my gross income compared to my net income, I can use the 25%. So I'll take my monthly salary times 0.75, and it is almost like to the dollar my exact monthly net income. So that 25% for me that's being taken out, that could be for some people up to 35%. It's taxes and deductions. So like Medicare, Social Security, retirement. For me, I pay for my parking pass for West Deck. So that comes out of my paycheck and a handful of other things. Knowing this estimated number helps you be able to determine what's actually affordable before you graduate, when you look at a car or you're looking at your rent because you know what your monthly income will be. And it also varies based on your tax brackets. Um, if you go into your first job, though, without knowing this, you could be in a tricky situation. So it never hurts to be safe. Check this and even maybe go towards that higher percentage of using 30 or 35% while you're estimating, just to be careful so that you don't have a shortfall at the end of the month. Okay, if we were in person, this is where everybody would probably start shifting around uncomfortably in their seats. We're going to talk about salary negotiation, and I want to try and break the stigma about it. Salary negotiation isn't an argument. Rather, it's a professional discussion to ensure that you are not leaving money on the table. And guess what? Most employers expect you to negotiate, and they often welcome the conversation. If you take a look at the graph on the right-hand side, right, you can see some numbers. If you don't negotiate, right, you would get that first job starting out at $40,000 versus negotiating and getting that job starting at $56,000. You could miss out over $1.2 million in earnings over your lifetime. I won't sit here and lie because it will feel awkward. Maybe it may feel awkward, but just know that you're doing yourself a disservice if you don't try. Also, this is how we fight real pay inequities, especially when it comes to women and even more so women of color. The stats are there. I encourage you to get outside of your comfort zone with some of these upcoming steps. We'll talk about the actual negotiations. To get the best results of negotiating your salary, you can't go in blindly. Okay. You want to make sure that you do the legwork and get yourself prepared ahead of time. The first thing that you'll want to do is be sure to research market salaries. Don't just guess. Look what's actually out there and what's typical for your field. Use the job title and use the specific location that you are looking to work, because location matters. Prioritize your negotiating points, right? So I'm talking here about salary negotiation, specifically that money that's coming in. But there are so many other things that you can negotiate beyond your base salary. You have to figure out what else matters to you. So I'm curious. I'll list a few, but does anybody have any points that they would prioritize when negotiating? Some of them could be a flexible work arrangement or extra vacation days. If you have any, send them over in the Q&A, or any that you know of someone being successful in the past, being able to negotiate for. I know people that have negotiated a better job title that just looks it looks better, right, on a resume. So they're building themselves that way. Tuition reimbursement might be something. Someone in the chat said benefits. Absolutely. Yep. Stock options are a possibility. 401k matching. Excellent. Yes. So being able to look at that retirement, extra vacation days for sure. Yes. That is one of the common ones that people just ask. It's not even about the money, right? It's about the time. Can I have some extra time off? But you want to know your must-haves versus your nice-to-haves. Okay. When it boils down to being able to go and negotiate, you have to know yourself. You can build something, just to give it a fun name, a wins folder, where you can put together and keep a running list of all your accomplishments, projects, recognition, awards. If you had class wins, volunteer wins, anything that is an accomplishment, when you sit and look through that, being able to look at, oh, I did all of these things, knowing your own value can be extremely beneficial when it's time to go and convince someone else of it, especially when you're in a job interview or in the interviewing process and someone doesn't know you quite yet. Once you have that wins folder, you're looking through it. It sounds silly to do it, but practice expressing your value, whether it be talking to a mirror, recording yourself on the phone, having a friend sit with you. Any way that you can practice, get the words, say them. It will feel more and more natural when the stakes are real. And then once the offer comes around, being able to have taken the time to be prepared, you'll feel confident when it's time to sign that offer. In negotiations, your employer could go back with a counter offer, and that's fine. That's often part of the negotiation. Just keep in mind, again, that your future employer most likely expects that you'll negotiate. If you want to sit down and take the time to practice beforehand, if you're looking for someone to do that with, you're very welcome to reach out to us at the center or Penn State Career Services, and we are all here and happy to help you get comfortable. Haley will drop some information on the chat. You'll also notice there is a PSU Alumni Career Services so that you can get in touch with them even after you graduate. Okay, I want to give a few quick last tips before I hand it over to Clarissa, specifically about salary negotiations. You want to wait for the offer. So don't negotiate until that offer is out there. That offer is on the table and they're saying, yes, we want you. If they ask you for a range early in the interview process, you could deflect and just say something along the lines of, I'd really like to learn more about this role before I set my salary expectations. Okay. You'll want to find your walkaway point. Always comes back to the budget, right? So your walkaway point is based on your budget and it's the lowest salary that you can afford to live on. You'll want to know what that number is before negotiating. And lastly, keep it classy. You don't have to take the first offer, but it's important to stay kind and respectful, and you don't want to overshare or go in with an all or nothing attitude. Okay. The next topics coming up are areas that Clarissa will talk about, and she's worked to become very comfortable and set herself up nicely for. So without further ado, take it away, Clarissa.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Melanie. So, the next thing that we really encourage you to start thinking about whenever you're looking at after graduation, and as Melanie said, it all comes back to the budget, thinking about how you want to be allocating your money and the plan you have for it, is we really do encourage you to start thinking about saving and investing. This is something that's pretty easy to let slip by you, especially in those first few years right after you graduate, because you're thinking about a lot, right? So maybe you're thinking about wanting to buy your first house or your first apartment. Maybe you're just trying to figure out what you want to do with your career or have fun right after you graduate. And so this is something that can pretty easily kind of fall to the wayside. But if you are to take the time and do the research that you need to start saving and investing, it can mean potentially potentially life-changing amounts of money. And that's kind of what the graph that you see on your screen right now is trying to illustrate here. And so we have sort of a hypothetical scenario here of the tale of three investors. So we have Talia, Jess, and Nate. And what we're interested in here is who's going to have the most amount of money invested and saved that they can use by the time they turn 65, right? So around that retirement age. So we can see that that first investor is named Talia. She's investing $5,000 a year. It's something she starts doing at 35 and she does it up until 65. So up until she retires, she's putting aside $5,000 a year. For those 30 years, that brings the total amount of her own money that she put into $150,000. Then we have Jess. So Jess is also investing $5,000 annually. She's starting 10 years earlier than Talia. So she's starting at 25, but she's only going to do it for 10 years. So she's investing from 25 to 35, and that's going to bring her total amount of money she invested to $50,000. And then finally at the bottom, the third investor, we have Nate. Again, he's put it in $5,000 annually, but he's starting early. So he's starting at 25 and he's going to be consistent with it. He's going to go all the way up to 65 again, bringing that to 40 years and $200,000. So then the graph that you see right next to the tail of these three investors recommend or shows the projected economic sort of situation that they would find these investments account after doing this. And that first one that shouldn't surprise you is we know that the person who saves the most amount of money and saves for the longest period of time is going to make the most amount of money, right? So that's Nate. We know that Nate is that top bar, and that probably makes sense to everyone here. But what might surprise you here is you'll notice that the second highest investor is Jess. It's not Talia. And that's despite Jess putting in less of her own money. So she's spending less of her own money into this account and also saving for a lot less time. So she's only saving for 10 years compared to Talia's saving for 30. And so what this is really trying to illustrate is the fact that the most powerful thing you have when it comes to saving and investing is time. And making the decision to maybe live a little frugally, be a little uncomfortable in those first 10 years of your career can really set yourself up for some really great financial success because you can never get back time. And if it's something you're able to start doing now, it's really important. And so on the next slide, what we're going to specifically talk about here is investing for retirement. And so we know that for a lot of people, retirement is the most expensive purchase they have coming up. It is the idea that you need to have enough money to pay for expenses for the rest of your life, which can potentially be 20 years, 30 years, especially if you're someone who knows you're thinking about early retirement. What you'll see on the screen here are kind of the two general buckets that we see retirement fall into. So we have those individual retirement accounts, and then we have those employer-sponsored plans. So individual retirement accounts, which you'll hear the most commonly referred to as IRAs, is the opportunity that you could start investing in right now, today, if you've ever worked a job that you paid taxes on. So for instance, I opened an IRA when I turned 18, and I've been making contributions with my paycheck to that as I can every month into this account. How these accounts work is you are able to put a relatively small amount of your money into one of these investment accounts, and then that money will be invested and compounding and growing in the market. For the Roth IRA and the traditional IRA, the big difference between these accounts is when that money is getting taxed. So for the Roth IRA, you are putting in money that's already been taxed. So it's after tax dollars, which means that whenever you pull it out at 65, you don't have to pay taxes on that withdrawal. Because of that, for a lot of college students or especially young professionals who are probably in one of the lower tax brackets they're going to find themselves in, oftentimes a Roth IRA may make sense. You're paying less taxes. There is then, though, another account called the traditional IRA, and this is pre-tax dollars. So you're not paying taxes when you put it in, but at 65, whenever it's time to withdraw it, you'll pay taxes then. So if you're at the peak of your career, you're kind of making the most amount of money you'll ever make, you find yourself in a higher tax bracket, sometimes looking at a traditional IRA would make sense. The other thing we always like to say about IRAs is in addition to being able to use that money for retirement, you can also withdraw them for first-time home buying. So just in general, a really great goals-based account. The other side of the screen on here is the employer-sponsored plans. You might have heard of a 401k before. That's the most popular type. And if you look on your screen with the public schools, the state and local governments, those are all different examples of retirement accounts you might be offered. And that QR code at the bottom of the screen is just going to take you to a page that is NerdWallet's retirement calendar and calculator. So if you're wondering how much is retirement going to cost, that's a really great place to go. You'll input a lot of personal information, and it'll give you a breakdown of how much retirement is actually going to cost. And spoiler alert, it's probably a little higher than you think. So for the average American right now in 2026 to retire at the age of 65, it's typically going to be anywhere from 1.5 to $2 million. That's a whole lot of money. So the key here is that you're saving early and often. The next slide here is just starting to think about what your different education expenses might be. Earlier, Melanie did a really great job of talking about why it's important to think about what your loans are going to look like. This is just one more reminder to think about those federal student loans and those private student loans. I know we had that question earlier of what should I be saying to my lenders? What information do I need to do? It's great to just make sure you know about the different repayment options that are out there, that you've made an account with all your loan servicers, and that you understand when and how you're going to be paying back those loans. The one caveat we'll give on this slide about those federal student loans, so that would be if you received any loans from the government through the free application for federal student aid, is you do receive a 6-month grace period. So after you graduate, you aren't expected to start making those payments, and that interest won't accrue until 6 months after you graduate. That is not the case with those private loans. We know that those are going to start right away. Oftentimes, they're already accruing interest, which means that it's very important to be on top of it for those. And our tip here is that you're building these into your budget. So we want this to be a line item of making sure you are able to afford those undergraduate student loans that you might have after your time here at Penn State. And making those minimum payments and being on top of that is a great way to stay out of financial trouble and build yourself up for financial success. After you've sort of figured out your undergraduate student loan situation, maybe some of you on this call, and I think I saw it in the webinar poll, are thinking about grad school and are thinking about doing some more school. Maybe these first few years here at Penn State weren't enough for you. Just know that there's a lot of different ways that you can make grad school more affordable. So there are things like fellowships, which are going to cover your tuition and your living expenses, and those will be pretty competitive to get, especially for things like PhD programs or master's programs. Sometimes schools will offer assistantships where in exchange for you doing research for the school or teaching classes, they might pay you a small stipend that can go towards your education. A lot of places do offer some employer tuition reimbursement. So, especially here at Penn State, for instance, they do offer a discount if you are an employee of the school or a dependent of the employee of the school to go on and get that graduate degree or get that undergraduate degree that you're working on. And this also would include things like maybe your company that you work for really wants you to go get a master's degree. And Melanie was talking about good things to negotiate with your company. That can be something you're negotiating. If I'd love to go get my master's, would you be willing to help me pay for this tuition? Or would you be willing to at least help reimburse me for that tuition cost and for those loans? There's a lot of companies who are willing to have that conversation because the more trained and qualified their employees are, the better for everyone. So looking into opportunities like that, especially if you think you might be in a gap year situation, are great. And then finally, of course, we love scholarships and grants, all that free money that comes to you based on academic merit or financial need, or that school really wanting you to attend. For me personally, I'll be paying for my law school that I mentioned I'm starting in the fall through scholarships and grants, which I'm really grateful for. Took some time to apply for them, but I'm very excited to be able to use that free money to go to law school free of cost, which is very exciting. One other caveat, if you do find yourself in a situation where you've kind of exhausted those sources we just looked at and you're like, I don't have enough personal funds to pay for grad school, is there are graduate federal student loans. This situation is changing and developing, and so we just want to make you aware of it. There are those graduate unsubsidized loans. So if you are someone who had undergraduate unsubsidized loans as well, this is probably a familiar concept to you. You fill out that FAFSA, which is the free application for federal student aid, and you are, based on your need and the information you provide there, offered a certain amount of the graduate unsubsidized loans. These have an annual limit of $20,500 a year, and then an aggregate limit, meaning over the lifetime of your career as a student, of $138,500. The really important caveat we want to give on this slide is that if you did take out unsubsidized loans for your undergraduate degree as well, that aggregate limit there, that 138 number, that does include your undergraduate loans. So making sure that when you're calculating, okay, how much can I use to fund these public loans through graduate unsubsidized, you're subtracting from your aggregate limit any amount you took for your undergrad degree. That second line there, those graduate plus loans, there are possibly changes coming beginning on July 1st, 2026. Currently, these are something that you fill out an application for and then can fund up to the cost of attendance, and they have a credit check on them. There is current legislation that's been passed to say that this program will be sundowning on July 1st, 2026. We really recommend that you just keep in touch with the center, and as we get more information, we will be sharing out more information about this program. But knowing that right now, it doesn't look like, or it's possible that these won't be around to fund further education schooling for the plus. So looking to other sources and understanding how that situation is developing. I mentioned on that last slide that beautiful 6 month grace period, those undergraduate loans where you are kind of in deferment as you're getting your undergraduate degree. That's going to carry over for a grad program as well. So if you do enlist in a grad program, you have those federal or public undergraduate loans. Those can stay in deferment as long as you're at a 6+ graduate credits program, which is great. And then we already talked about that grace period. So, the next topic that we just want to talk about is kind of something that has been woven into a lot of the rungs we've talked about today, which is how to build a strong financial reputation through your credit score. So, at the center, we like to talk about your credit score as your financial GPA. So, in the same way, your academic GPA is a reflection of showing up to class, turning in assignments on time, generally being good academic students. Your credit score is a reflection of you being a good financial student. These numbers can range anywhere from 300 all the way up to 850, which would be a perfect credit score. And as with most things with money, the more in the green you are, the better. And what this number is measuring is how well are you managing your different types of debt and credit. The higher your credit score is, it is viewed as you being a more responsible spender of those debt and credits. So it's a number that shows you're more in control. And because of that, there's a lot of doors that can be opened if you build up a strong financial reputation. So, for instance, it can be cheaper to borrow money. We just talked a lot about loans. If you think that's something you're going to need, whenever you go to get those student loans, if they're doing a private student loan check, they might look at your credit score. And if you've shown you're responsible, that might be easier to get. It's easier to rent or buy a house. I'm sure some of us have heard about the process of applying for mortgages and getting approved. Those things can be easier and cheaper with the stronger financial reputation that you have. And so it's really important you know what this number is. As you can probably tell, it's going to impact a lot of different things. And so just know that if you have a student loan in your name, if you have a car loan, a medical loan, a credit card, if you've ever been an authorized user on a parent's credit card, surprise and congratulations, you have a credit score. And a great first step leaving this webinar today is to check that score. Most mobile banking apps will give you an estimation of what your score looks like. Credit Karma is a free service as well that you can use to check it. Just have some way that you are in the know about your financial reputation. And once you see that credit score, it's important to kind of understand what's going into that, right? So we've already talked about the fact that it is about your credit worthiness and sort of your responsibility. You can take a look at the screen here on how everything breaks down, including that payment history, which is the idea of how long have you been a good financial tenant. We know that those making those payments on time are really important, and one missed or late payment on any form of credit can impact your score for 7 years. So knowing those deadlines and making sure you're on top of it is really important. And in standard, you're probably going to hear, if you hear anyone say FICO score, that's pretty synonymous with credit score. It's the standard that's used by over 90% of the top lenders. One of the other large portions that impacts your credit score is how well you're managing that debt and if you're paying it back. So, we've talked a lot about being aware of those student loans, but the 4 steps you see on your screen here apply for things like student loans, but also things like car loans or mortgages, or maybe you just need to take out a personal loan to make ends meet for a few months. These are the 4 steps we want you to follow whenever you're thinking about what your personal debt situation is. And the first is just be aware of how much you owe. It's great to have a list of all the types of debts you've taken out, the interest rate that came with it. So that's that percentage number. How much are you being charged additionally for the privilege of borrowing that money? And then to start thinking about the different options for repayment. What does that lender who you gave the money for expect from you? When do they want it? Are there ways to make the process easier and more affordable for you? Step three, again, it all comes back to the budget, adjusting that budget to make sure you can make the minimum payments and stay out of financial trouble. And then finally, just picking a repayment strategy. There is not one golden rule when it comes to paying back debt. And this is a time when we find psychology actually plays a really large role in debt management. So if you are someone who feels like you get really overwhelmed whenever you find yourself in a lot of debt, maybe it makes sense to pay back some of those easier debts, the smaller ones, to sort of give yourself that kickstart to get yourself start going. For other people, they're all about being aggressive and wanting to get rid of it as quick as possible and do it cheaply. And in that case, it might make sense to attack those higher interest rate debts or those larger balance debts. What we're going to ask you to do with this step is to actually kind of complete a debt management worksheet on your own time that you can find on our website. And Melanie, if you go on to the next slide, this is a look at what that spreadsheet is going to look like. This is the first step to deciding what your personal plan of attack is going to be against your debts. And it's free to download from our website, and hopefully you can see how this would be helpful. The most important column on here is that last one, the priority, right? So this just refers to what order do I want to attack these debts in. On average, one of the most expensive forms of debt, or at least the ones that come with the highest interest rates, are going to be things like credit card debt, and that can be really damaging. And potentially really dangerous versus something like student loans or a car loan where you kind of have a set payment plan. It's an expected kind of debt. It's a debt you're using for a great cause. Those are oftentimes something that you can then feel a little bit more comfortable with. And so the point of this worksheet is you're just keeping track of everything you have going on so you're in the know and you're ready to go with your plan. And that is kind of what this webinar has all been about, is when it comes to preparing for life after graduation, it is sitting down and having those hard conversations with yourself and looking very honestly at where you are right now financially and where you want to go. So, as we start wrapping up and nearing the end of the hour here, we just want to show you a quick recap of everything we've talked about today as sort of great five big steps to get started with the center. And the first one is to refresh that budget, make sure that the situation you're living in is accurate for your life after graduation. Think about planning to negotiate your salary, and we can throw in there maybe negotiate offers from graduate schools like law schools or PhD programs. You can start saving and investing for their retirement and future expenses. And remember how important it is to start that conversation with yourself early, because the most valuable thing we have in time is time. Start thinking about what your repayment plan is going to be for those undergraduate student loans and any other personal loans that you have. And then finally, making sure your financial reputation through your credit score is something that you are just as proud of as you all probably are of your time here at Penn State. We want that number and that picture of who you are as a financial student to be something that you hold with a whole lot of pride. And with that, I'm going to hand it back to Melanie to wrap us up.
Larissa, absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for being here today. So, just like that, everybody, you are one step closer to being ready for life after Penn State. These topics could feel like a lot, but you don't have to have it all figured out by tomorrow. Hopefully, this helps you feel like you have a solid foundation and some of those right tools to help you really build the financial life that you actually want. Thank you all so much for your time and for all of the participation throughout. I loved hearing from some of you, and I'm excited for you for your next chapter and adventures to come. I hope to see you back here again on April 28th for our next and last webinar of the semester, when we chat with Penn State Sustainability to talk about environmental stewardship. And don't forget about PNC's retirement webinar on the 26th. Have a great rest of your week, everyone.